Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company on the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. We are also part of the Believe YouTube Podcast Network. Here today on the program, like and subscribe, tell all your friends. And I'm hopeful today. If you're watching the stream, I have a quarter zip on today, a USA Baseball quarter zip. I think today, I hope, is the last quarter zip day of the year, because I am thinking that it is, from here on out, spring and summer weather. That's my hope. It is baseball season starting after all. I want to get to a mock draft today that came out, and I was shocked because it did not have Jeremiah Love or a pass rusher going number one to the Titans, and it had a guard going to the Titans with the 35th pick. We'll get to that in a second. Plus, the most ridiculous draft take heard around the world. Plus, does Cam Ward know the Titans draft plans? Plus, big game tonight for the Predators against the San Jose Sharks. We'll hit all of it today here on the program. First, though, I want to tell you about our presenting sponsor. That's right. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Hiller has taken great care of my home, and they can do the same for you. They've taken care of homes in this area since 1990, and they are family-owned and operated with 100% satisfaction. Of Happy You'll Be, the service is free. If a customer is not pleased with the work that is performed, Hiller will make it right. Learn more by visiting happyhiller.com. They have 100% satisfaction of Happy You'll Be, or the service is free. Professional experience, trustworthy technicians come in your home and leave it clean and better than they found it. And I know this because I use Hiller at my home. And care is their core value. They believe that when they care about others, everyone wins. They'll take care of the customer on every job, every time. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds. Big one tonight. The Vols, Sweet 16 on the men's side on Friday. And Vandy, congratulations to the Vandy women's team. Proud supporter of the Preds, Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the happy face truck today. Okay, let's get to Field Yates mock draft at ESPN.com. And the first thing I did when I saw that Field Yates had a 2-round mock draft was I went right to number 4. And I was surprised because, as we talked about yesterday, when Jim Wyatt did his tour of the mock drafts, everybody had the Titans taking Jeremiah Love or one of the pass rushers. There was one person on the list who had them taking Sonny Styles. Well, according to Field Yates, with the 4th overall pick in his latest mock draft at ESPN, the Tennessee Titans are taking Sonny Styles, the linebacker out of Ohio State. Field writes, quote, "The Titans don't have a glaring need at pass rush after trading for Jermaine Johnson and signing John Franklin Myers." Stop. I disagree. I think they still have a glaring need for pass rush, even after trading for Jermaine Johnson and signing John Franklin Myers. Field continues. But new coach Robert Saleh shouldn't mind more help at linebacker behind Johnson, Franklin Myers, and defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons. Styles has put together about as good of a final season and pre-draft process as you could ask for. He dominated on the field in 2025, finishing with the 3rd highest tackle percentage in FBS, 97.5%. Then at the Combine, he posted the highest vertical jump by an off-ball linebacker since 2003 and ran the fastest 40 at his position. Styles is instinctive and long at 6'5" with the versatility to cover or blitz as a former safety. That's the first pick. Then, of course, I don't know how you guys do this, but in a 2-round mock draft, I jump all the way down to 35. Who are the Titans picking? You tell me, Field Yates, with the 35th pick in the draft. Field Yates has the Titans taking Keelan Rutledge, the guard out of Georgia Tech. Field writes, quote, If your goal is to get tougher in this draft, good luck finding a player who fits that bill better than Rutledge. The physical grading guard personified what was a hard-nosed, relentless program at Georgia Tech. Tennessee needs to continue to fortify the offensive line, especially as guard Kevin Zeitler's plans for 2026 remain undecided. Okay, let me just address that last part first. Kevin Zeitler is like 36 years old. You should not be making draft decisions based upon Kevin Zeitler. So if you love the guard, even if you re-sign Kevin Zeitler and he starts for you, that doesn't mean don't take the guard. Because if you love the guard, take the guard. Zeitler's not going to be here for forever. So when it's like, well, they don't have Kevin Zeitler back, they might take a guard. I don't think that is the number one reason that I would take a guard or not take a guard is because of what's happening with Kevin Zeitler. So I just want to address that one first. So the end of Fields' first round in his mock draft is exactly what would scare the piss out of me. And what I think is probably going to happen, because if you go back to my mock draft last week, I had all the receivers flying off the board. Omar Cooper Jr. at 30 to Miami, who just traded for that pick by giving up Jalen Waddle. I believe that Philadelphia is going to end up with the 31st pick from New England for A.J. Brown, and I think they're going to take Denzel Boston. That's the A.J. replacement. I have KC Concepcion going at 34, one spot ahead to the Browns. I think there's going to be a run on the receivers at the end of the first round. And what I'm afraid is I'm afraid of a run on the edge rushers and a run on the receivers. And according to Fields' mock draft, Zion Young goes at 25, the edge from Missouri. Keldrick Falk, the edge from Auburn at 27. Cassius Howell, the edge from Kansas City at 29. KC Concepcion, the wide receiver at 30 to Miami. Denzel Boston, the wide receiver at 31 to New England. Again, I think that's going to be Philadelphia's pick. Same difference. And then two corners come off, and Avion Terrell at 32 and Colton Hood at 33. Well, that puts you in a terrible spot. Because, again, the guards are what's left. Chase Pasantis, this guy, Blake Miller at Clemson, and the receivers and pass rushers are gone. And that is what scares the daylights out of me if you're the Titans, especially if you do not take one of Bailey, Bain, or Reese with the fourth pick. So I've said if you take Jeremiah Love with that fourth pick, we have to hope that there's going to be a receiver that is sitting there at 35 or an edge rusher that's there at 35, because they do need to take one of those guys if they go BPA with Jeremiah Love or, in this case, Sonny Styles. So let me address what I think is kind of each pick in and of itself. Let's start with Styles at 4. If we get to draft night, and here's what's crazy about the Titans in the draft. I mean, I hear the Titans, it sounds like, telling everybody they're not going to take Jeremiah Love. And what I've learned about this time of the year is that most of the time when everybody is reporting that the Titans are not going to take Jeremiah Love, and PK has said he doesn't think they're going to take Jeremiah Love, Schefter has said he doesn't think they're going to take Jeremiah Love, then that means that they're going to take Jeremiah Love. But I learned that lesson a couple years ago when everybody said Jim Harbaugh keeps saying he's going to take Joe Alt. And I'm like, they already have a Pro Bowl left tackle. Why would they take Joe Alt? They don't have any receivers. And the Chargers are going to be sitting there at 5, and they're going to have a choice between Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. or Roma Dunze. Why would they take the left tackle? And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't buy it. And then all of a sudden, the pick came in. And I had a meltdown. An absolute meltdown when they took Joe O. What's funny is the year before, Indianapolis kept telling everybody they were going to take Will Levis. And I said, if they keep saying they're going to take Will Levis, that means they're not going to take Will Levis. And then I applied the same logic the next year with Harbaugh and Alt and was wrong. So I don't necessarily know what to make of them saying that they're not going to take Jeremiah Love, but I've told you I don't think they're going to take Jeremiah Love. Now, I believe they're going to take one of Bailey, Bain, or Reese. And in this draft, the Field Yates mock draft, the Titans are at a disadvantage because what I think is the doomsday scenario for them happens. Mendoza, Bailey, Reese. So now you either have to take Rueben Bain in his short arms with the 4th pick, or you take Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, or Jeremiah Love. Now, everybody will say they should trade out. Well, I think that's going to be easier said than done. Last year, New England desperately wanted to trade out of the 4th overall pick, and New England, as hard as they tried to trade out of that 4th overall pick, couldn't do it. They ended up taking Will Campbell. A couple of years ago, the Titans had the 5th overall pick, and that was a draft with Mahomes and Deshaun Watson in it, and the Titans were trying to trade out of the 5th pick, and they couldn't get any takers. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think the Titans are going to be able to trade out of that spot, which means if Bailey and Reese are gone, it's either Bain, a very high-end prospect, but we have to admit flawed, or you somewhat ignore the positional value and you go with Love, Styles, or Downs, which takes me to Styles. I'm cool with Sonny Styles with the 4th overall pick. I'm sure there are some of you out there who would say, no, Jared, we don't need a linebacker. And I think Cody Barton kind of sucks, but I agree. 4th overall pick for a linebacker. Again, that's how I feel about running back too. We all remember how I felt about a guard with the 11th overall pick. But here's the one thing I've learned. When you are a special player at a position, the phrase a lot of people around here like to use is generational talent. A lot of people also like to wrongly attribute that to Mike Borgonzi, who never said that. It was Chad Brinker. But when you are a generational talent, even at a non-premium position, you can impact the game. And I use Derrick Henry as the example. Derrick Henry is a running back. Derrick Henry is a freak of nature. I think that Titan fans and even the Titans front office waited for years and years and years for Derrick Henry to fall off the cliff. I think the Titans felt like they were on borrowed time with Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is running all over the league. Derrick Henry breaks his foot. Derrick Henry comes back and still runs like Derrick Henry. At some point, this is going to fail because it's inevitable with running backs. Even the great running backs like Terrell Davis, Gale Sayers, even Eric Dickerson. Go back and look at Eric Dickerson's career. There is a fall off. And with Derrick, that day was coming, and they knew it. And yet Derrick Henry packs up and goes to Baltimore, and he runs just like Derrick Henry. There's Derrick Henry in 2024 on Sunday Night Football, 95 yards against the Buffalo Bills, because Derrick Henry is a freak of fucking nature. And if this draft was loaded with premium, high-end, blue chip talent at premium positions, then we wouldn't be having these discussions. But it's not. Even Fernando Mendoza, who is a 1-1 quarterback in this draft, even Fernando Mendoza isn't the traditional blue chip number 1 Andrew Luck quarterback. So we have to get this out of our brains that this draft is like the other drafts, because it's not. This is not a good draft. This is like what people tell me, the 2022 draft, where there are good players. Derek Stingley's a good player. Aiden Hutchinson is a good player. But as far as transcendent draft prospects, like Myles Garrett, that doesn't exist in this year's draft. And if it does exist, it's in these non-premium players. And again, that would be Jeremiah Love and Sonny Styles, and to a certain extent, Caleb Downs. I remember the 2018 draft. Cleveland picked first and fourth. And Cleveland took Baker Mayfield at 1, and they took Denzel Ward, the corner out of Ohio State, at 4. And I remember the next day, off the air, Floyd said to me his biggest criticism of Cleveland was they went into a draft with the first pick and the fourth pick, and they took the first offensive player and the first defensive player, and in his opinion, they did not get the best offensive player or the best defensive player. Now, I don't remember who he thought the best defensive player was at the time, and maybe we look back at it and Denzel Ward was the best defensive player. I can't remember, but I remember that criticism. And so when it comes to Jeremiah Love and to Sonny Styles, I think you can make the argument, if you draft either guy, that you are taking the best offensive player in this draft, or in Styles, the best defensive player in this draft. James Foster and I did the Hot Read podcast a couple weeks ago, and James Foster was cool with Sonny Styles at number 4. But let me say this. Sonny Styles can't just be a good player if the Titans take him at number 4. He has to be a great player. He has to be headed to Canton. He has to be that kind of player to use the 4th overall pick on him. And when it comes to Robert Saleh, if I was the general manager, I'm not sure I would let Robert Saleh talk me in to Sonny Styles. But if I was in on Sonny Styles and Robert Saleh said, this guy is a freak of nature. What we did with Fred Warner in San Francisco, what we did with Quincy Williams and C.J. Mosley at the Jets, we can do that and more with this guy. This guy, we got to have this guy. That was the way I felt about Joe Walton 24. Got to have that guy. And if Robert Saleh says we got to have this guy with Sonny Styles, and I'm already kind of there on Sonny Styles, that may push it over the top. Now, that's how I feel about Jeremiah Love. I think Jeremiah Love is exactly what Cam Ward needs. And so in this particular situation, if you said, Jared, the call is yours, Love or Styles, personally, I would take Love. And I don't care about the running back position in this case because I think Love is that kind of player. And I think Cam Ward in this offense needs that at running back. But you can definitely convince me that Sonny Styles is worth a 4th pick. And that the second the Titans take Sonny Styles, they will have a linebacking pair between Styles and Cedric Gray that will complement each other and will allow the Titans to really clean up anything that gets past the defensive line. That when the Titans play an elite tight end, and I know there's really not a lot of those in the game today, but it does come up. When the Titans play an elite tight end, Sonny Styles can match up with him. When the Titans play a team that has a running back coming out of the backfield, because unfortunately the reality is if you don't take Jeremiah Love, somebody else is taking Jeremiah Love. Sonny Styles can chase him in coverage. If you can say, hey, we're going to design a green dog blitz, and we want the quarterback to think Sonny Styles is going to drop back. And as the quarterback starts to think that Sonny Styles is going to drop back, here comes Sonny Styles with that incredible 40 speed. Okay. So I was surprised to see Field Yates mock Sonny Styles to the Titans, but I'm not totally against it either. In fact, I actually say that I'm somewhat on board with Sonny Styles. If we get to draft night, and we're all sitting there, and we will have a special draft celebration, Draft-A-Ganza, here on the 440 Sports Network. If we're sitting there and all of a sudden we hear the Titans take Sonny Styles, you're not going to see a meltdown. I'm going to be okay with it. Because, again, the context of this draft tells me there are very few players that are Sonny Styles or Jeremiah Love caliber, and so I might as well take the best caliber player I can get. The second pick that the Titans made in the Field Yates mock draft. Keelan Rutledge, the guard out of Georgia Tech. The guard. Let me say this. I think everybody knows I've been very outspoken about taking guards high in the draft. As we all know, I had a meltdown when the Titans took Peter Skoronski with the 11th overall pick. And some of you true blue bobos out there say, that was a great pick, Jared. Well, he's been in the NFL for 3 years, and he hasn't made a Pro Bowl. And I understand the idea that the Pro Bowl is kind of whack now, but the reality is if you're a great player, you make the Pro Bowl. And he hasn't made the Pro Bowl. So he's not a great player. That's just how it is. At that position, he's good. I don't need that at 11. And I feel the same way, by the way, about Sonny Styles and Jeremiah Love. If you think Sonny Styles is going to be a good player, but not make the Pro Bowl, pass. If you think Jeremiah Love is going to be a good player, but not make the Pro Bowl, move on. If you think he's going to be a generational player, if you think he's going to be Offensive Rookie of the Year, if you think Sonny Styles is going to be all over the field every play, and it's going to be the next Ray Lewis, take him. And I felt the same way about Skoronski. If I draft him at 11, he better go to the Pro Bowl every year and on his way to Canton. And he's not. Congratulations on getting a second contract. Big fucking deal. So, how do I feel about the Titans taking a guard at 35? Well, 35 and 11 are so night and day different. So, when I think about the Titans taking a guard at 35, I'm not completely against it. And I have said, I think they need to spend at right guard. The thing about the interior offensive line, as opposed to the tackles, when it comes to who gets to free agency, interior offensive linemen often get to free agency. And the reason interior offensive linemen get to free agency is because teams that draft good tackles lock them up at top of the market money, and they don't do that with interior offensive linemen. Baltimore wasn't going to go above and beyond for Tyler Linderbaum. So he hit the market. The top guards every year hit the market, and we're shocked when they signed for big deals. And I'm always like, because tackles traditionally don't hit the market. So teams with bad offensive lines and a bunch of money to spend say, fine, let's go get the guard. I don't have a problem taking a guard at 35. Especially the way that Fields mock starts to bear out, where the pass rushers and the receivers all go at the end of the first round. And if the Titans have a feel like that run is coming, they may be smart enough to try to move up and get back into the first round, although it may take a lot to do that, but to move up and get back in the first round to get one of those edge rushers or one of those receivers instead of taking the guard. But here's my one thing. And this is without knowing anything about Keelan Rutledge or trying to pretend like I know who Keelan Rutledge is. If they take a guard with the 35th pick, he better be starting every fucking week. And he doesn't have to go to the Pro Bowl, but he better be damn good, and he better be damn good right away. Because, again, it's a guard. You can get a guard in free agency. It's week 3 of free agency, and Kevin Zeitler, who is a good guard, is still out there. You can get a guard. You can also wing it at guard. I hate saying it because I don't like to allow the Titans to wing anything, because the second I let the Titans start winging things is the second they start doing some really stupid stuff. But you can wing it at guard. Like, you can wing it and figure it out, and it'll be okay. Now, that doesn't mean you can start Jameel Douglas like the Titans did when Nate Davis was hurt in 2019. But you could go into the season and say Cordell Volson is going to be our starting right guard, and I'm fine with that. I mean, a couple of years ago, the Titans went in there with Sadiq Charles was supposed to be their starting right guard, and then he quit like 3 days into the season. And so Dylan Radunz, by default, got the right guard position. I loved, by the way, that Brian Callahan and his bozos fed Corey Curtis that crap on the TV broadcast of, no, they earned it. And I think Rand said that Jeffrey Simmons said, yeah, that right side of the line with PT and Radunz, they've really gotten better. Way to go. But Radunz wasn't the disaster on the line. Radunz was fine as a guard. He was fine as a guard for Vrabel, and he was fine as a guard for Callahan in that first year. It's fine. Guard's fine. Now, I still think they should go sign a veteran right guard because I'd like to have a good guard and I'd like to run the ball. But I'm not overextending myself for a guard. I look at it like this. If you take one of the two non-premium position players, Styles or Love, or Downs if you want to include him, though I've kind of checked out on Caleb Downs. I don't know why. Maybe an anti-safety bias. If you decide we're going to take Love or we're going to take Styles, and so now you still have got to get an edge rusher and you still have got to get a receiver. And I am not going to pretend that Oladejo or Io Manor are long-term pieces, at least not yet. If you do that, and you get to 35 and BPA is a guard, you better hope you can trade out. And even if that means picking up an extra fourth and trading down to 39. Because my logic there is you can still get the guard somewhere around 39. You can still get the guard in the 50s. What you can't do is you can't get the pass rusher at that point. We learned that last year, remember? The Titans were at 35, and Nick Emanwari was sitting there, and Donovan Ezeraku was sitting there, and Luther Burden was sitting there, and the Titans traded out of that pick, and then they ended up drafting Oladejo. You don't want that. But the guard, you can get the guard later in the draft. And I was a little surprised, too, by the way, to see that Eli Stowers still on the board, the tight end out of Vandy. And in Field Yates' mock draft, he has Eli Stowers going 46 to Tampa Bay. I'd rather draft Eli Stowers. Now, I know the Titans think Gunnar Helm's a starter, and they're paying $8 million to Daniel Bellinger, who caught 19 passes last year. But I'd rather see Eli Stowers at that 35th pick than a guard. So, again, Fields mock draft, I mean, my initial reaction, Sonny Styles and Keelan Rutledge, I'm cool with Styles. The guard, I'm kind of like, I don't know about that. But I can live with it. But, again, if you get to 35, if you draft the guard at 35, he better be your 10-year starter at guard. End of story. And so then you can pay him and pay Skoronski, and you'll 6 years from now be paying two guards a combined $50 million. And that's fine, I guess. I don't know what the cap is going to look like 5 years from now, but whatever. But I do get nervous about the idea of, oh, yeah, just take the guard. I mean, you don't know if Kevin Zeitler is going to come back. So if Kevin Zeitler, who's older than Methuselah, comes back, I'm supposed to all of a sudden say, well, now don't need a guard now. I don't know about that. So that's the first topic. The second topic is the draft take heard round the world. Has anybody been following Dan Orlovsky at ESPN and his raging hard-on for Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson? I have, because it feels like on social media it is unavoidable. Bravo, Dan. I've always said this about Dan Orlovsky, and I don't know Dan Orlovsky personally, and he might be a great guy. And this is not a personal attack at Dan Orlovsky. But I've always got Skip Bayless, who played quarterback, albeit not well, vibes from Dan Orlovsky. Where Dan Orlovsky for years has just said unbelievable shit on a consistent basis, and I almost kind of feel like he does it on purpose. The one thing about Dan Orlovsky is everybody's brilliant, every coach and every quarterback is awesome. And so what happens is Dan Orlovsky rides the nuts of every quarterback out there telling us how good they are. And maybe that's because they're all better than he was. I don't know. But he gets out there and he tells everybody how good Cam Ward's going to be. Well, he also said all the same stuff about Anthony Richardson. And so I've just noticed Dan always goes on TV and talks about how good these quarterbacks are, or if a quarterback's failing, about how it's not the quarterback's fault. And so anytime he hypes up a quarterback, I just brush it off because Dan Orlovsky always does that. I remember when the Titans fired Brian Callahan and they were talking about who the next coach was going to be. And Dan had a list of like 5 guys, and he was like, all 5 of these guys would be incredible coaches. And again, I'm like, what the fuck do you know, Dan Orlovsky? And the answer is nothing. You know, again, when they hired Robert Saleh, I have no idea if Robert Saleh is going to be a good coach or not. But that takes me back to Ty Simpson. And the take heard round the world. Dan Orlovsky thinks that Ty Simpson is better than Fernando Mendoza. I mean, it's got balls to, you've got to have balls to say something like that. But does anybody actually believe that? And it's one thing for one guy who is not a quarterback's coach, even though he plays one on TV, who is not a general manager, who's never been a general manager, who's never worked in personnel. It would be one thing if Dan Orlovsky were to just say, I believe that Ty Simpson is better than Fernando Mendoza. Instead, Dan Orlovsky's been going all over McAfee, basically saying, I talked to all these general managers, and all these general managers told me that I'm right. I'm sure you did. I don't believe this. And the only reason I don't believe this is because I watched Ty Simpson play quarterback in college. I didn't study the tape. I don't know exactly how much of it was Simpson's fault, how much of it was the Alabama receiver's fault, how much of it was the Alabama offensive line's fault, how much of it was Kalen DeBoer's fault, how much of it was Ryan Grubb, the offensive coordinator's fault. But I watched Fernando Mendoza play quarterback in college, and I watched Ty Simpson play quarterback in college, and I am convinced that Ty Simpson is not better than Fernando Mendoza. It's funny because I remember one morning, it was like 5 a.m, because that's Eastern time, 6 o'clock, when the Sirius morning show on Mad Dog Radio starts. And when those guys are out, Jeff Schwartz or Caroline and I are in. And so that morning, I think it was me and Caroline and Mike Renner at CBS, who I've known for a long time and I really, really like. Mike Renner had his mock draft out before the start of the college football season when everyone's talking about Arch Manning and Lenora Sellers and Cade Klubnik and Drew Aller and Garrett Nussmeier. And his number 1 overall pick was Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback at Indiana. And I remember that Curtis Rourke was the quarterback at Alabama, Indiana last year. So I'm like, who's Fernando Mendoza? Like, who is that? And all of a sudden, we watch the season, and Fernando Mendoza keeps winning and climbing and winning and climbing. And for me, it was the Penn State game where they really did not play well. And in the fourth quarter, Fernando Mendoza led them to victory with just some perfect passes. And I'm like, Fernando Mendoza looks like a number 1 quarterback. I watched the Alabama season just like everybody else did. I didn't watch every game. I didn't watch that game at the end of the season they played against the Citadel or Scarbini Tech, but I watched most of the Alabama season. When they played Vanderbilt, I watched. So did everybody else. When they played Florida State, I watched. So did everybody else. When they played Georgia, I watched. And so did everybody else. When they played Oklahoma, I watched, and so did everybody else. When it came to Ty Simpson, I never once saw him play quarterback this year and thought, wow. Not one time. And again, just because sometimes I have had that moment when I've watched quarterbacks who haven't ended up being very good. I remember when I was in high school and Matt Leinart was at USC. And I'm just telling you, I watched Matt Leinart play quarterback in college, and I thought he was going to be amazing in the NFL. And obviously we know that Matt Leinart wasn't. But I didn't see anything from Ty Simpson last year that makes me think he's ready to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't even think Ty Simpson's big enough. I'm not sure Ty Simpson has a good enough arm. I'm not even sure Ty Simpson is athletic enough. I mean, Nick Saban kept trying to not play Ty Simpson. Jalen Milroe kept beating out Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson got the job because nobody else at quarterback at Alabama after Jalen Milroe left was any good. And then he craps his pants and the whole team doesn't show up for that first game against Florida State, which, again, I don't even know how they lost that game. And then they made up for it by beating Georgia and surprising people. But at the end of the year, Ty Simpson was a non-factor in the SEC title game against Georgia and a non-factor in that Rose Bowl against Indiana. And I understand, again, that some of these quarterbacks that end up being good NFL quarterbacks can be Josh Allen at Wyoming. But Ty Simpson doesn't have the physical gifts that a Josh Allen had. Ty Simpson's not putting up 70 points a game like Patrick Mahomes was at Texas Tech. I mean, if somebody said to me today, Jared, how would you feel about Ty Simpson as your quarterback? I'd say, I mean, like, no, I'm not interested. And last year, for instance, when Tyler Shuck was coming out, and a lot of people thought that Tyler Shuck, he might surprise people and go in the first round. I watched every Louisville football game. I watched Tyler Shuck play, and I thought Tyler Shuck was a backup. Like, I thought Tyler Shuck wasn't mobile enough for the NFL, and he had an injury history in college, and he was a little too old. And it felt like with Tyler Shuck, sometimes with the big throws, he was kind of a day late and a dollar short. And so I was like, Now, this year, the U of L had Miller Moss at quarterback, and I would have killed to have Tyler Shuck back. But I thought Tyler Shuck was a backup. Now, we'll see if Tyler Shuck ends up being a franchise quarterback or not. I think the Saints are kind of in the let's see territory too. It's his job this year. I thought he was impressive at the end of last year, so I'll give him credit. And maybe Ty Simpson's like Tyler Shuck. I don't know. But there's a big difference between Tyler Shuck, who went in the second round, and Ty Simpson is Fernando Mendoza, who's going to go number 1 overall. And I cannot imagine that Dan Orlovsky actually believes that A, Ty Simpson is better than Fernando Mendoza, because we all watched Ty Simpson in college and we all watched Fernando Mendoza in college. But what I can't believe is that he talked to 12 general managers. That is a third of the league. That he talked to 12 general managers who told him that Ty Simpson is better than Fernando Mendoza. I don't buy it. Now, let me say this. I hope he's right. If there are 12 general managers, again, a third of the league, if there are 12 GMs who think Ty Simpson is as good or better than Fernando Mendoza, then there's got to be a lot of teams that are going to try to get up to number 4 with the Titans in order to be able to get that great quarterback Dan Orlovsky loves, Ty Simpson. Or if he's so good, the Jets at 2, and I know the Jets have 2 first-round picks, and I know that the Jets have 2 second-round picks, and I know they have even more first-round picks next year. The Jets at 2 should just take Ty Simpson. If you think Ty Simpson is that good, you should take him. I don't think he's that good. So I'm not saying you should take him, but if you think he's that good, you should take him. So if that's the case, then that would push one of Arvell Reese or David Bailey for sure to the Titans. I'm cool with that. I have a hard time believing that Ty Simpson is all that in a bag of chips. And I will say this, in my latest mock draft, I did have Ty Simpson going 11th to the Jets. The Jets trading up with Miami and including a second-round pick to be able to move up and take Ty Simpson. Because I do think Ty Simpson is going to go in the first round, and I think a team like the Jets that's going to take him will say, sitting there at 16, let's move up to pull the trigger on Ty Simpson. So I think Ty Simpson will go in the top half of the first round. But the way it works in the NFL draft, especially a draft like this one, where there's not a lot of premium blue chip talent, is if you are a top-level quarterback, you go 1, 2, 3, 4 every time. Drake May, as far as a talent was concerned, probably wasn't a higher-graded player than Marvin Harrison Jr., but Drake May was always going to go ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. because he plays quarterback. Even the 2016 class, which was loaded, Jalen Ramsey, Ronnie Stanley, Joey Bosa, Laramie Tunsil, even that 2016 class, Jared Goff went 1, Carson Wentz went 2. So if Ty Simpson is as good as Fernando Mendoza, which Dan Orlovsky says a third of the league believes, if that's the case, then Fernando Mendoza will go number 1 and Ty Simpson will go number 2. And I would be shocked if Ty Simpson went number 2. Shocked. And the other thing I'll say about Ty Simpson, and this may be a lesson I learned from Anthony Richardson, but I do believe, and I think Arch Manning is making a very good decision with this. I think it matters how much quarterback you play in college. And I know there will always be the case of a quarterback who didn't play a lot in college. I can't think of one off the top of my head. But a guy who plays 1 year in college and he goes to the NFL and becomes Drew Brees. And again, off the top of my head, I don't know who that is. But for the most part, the really successful quarterbacks in the NFL have taken a lot of college snaps. And Ty Simpson certainly has not. 1 season of starting. And what I realized with the Anthony Richardson thing was, even though I felt like if the Colts sat him on the bench for that first year, they could have overcome his inexperience. By the time he got to the second year after he was hurt, he needed to play because he needed reps. There is no minor leagues for the NFL. They used to have NFL Europe, which I think was the point, was to send quarterbacks over there to get reps. I've always said this about Malik Willis. Malik Willis could have benefited so much by playing minor league football when the Titans drafted him in 2022. And I'm happy for Malik that he's made the progress he's made and gotten the contract he got. I wouldn't have given him that contract, but I'm happy for him that he got that contract. And I think that there is something to, hey, you only played 1 year in college. You might want to stay in college. And this time, you get paid. So if you stay in college, you'll make millions of dollars. I don't understand why Quinn Ewers, and Quinn Ewers got enough reps in college. He wasn't one of these Ty Simpsons who started for 1 year, but Quinn Ewers could have made $4 million as the starting quarterback on another team in the transfer portal while Texas transitioned to Arch. But instead, Quinn Ewers decided to go into the draft. He went in the 7th round. So I would be really hesitant on Ty Simpson because of the lack of football he played. But I'm also really hesitant on Ty Simpson because when I watched him play football this year, he wasn't that good. And it's not like I watched Alabama football this year scouting Ty Simpson. I just watched Alabama football in passing. And what I saw out of Alabama football, no thank you. I think I'd rather take a chance and wait instead of having to use a first-round pick on Ty Simpson. I think I'd rather wait until a Drew Aller or a Garrett Nussmeier or one of those guys fell to me in the draft. Because I think Nussmeier was hurt last year. But I'm not going to bank my career on Nussmeier, but I think Nussmeier was hurt last year. And I think he's probably as good as Ty Simpson, and he's had the practice. TDG says, you hated Malik. Keep the same energy. I told you Malik just needed a fair shake. I said Malik needed a red shirt. I wanted them to keep Logan Woodside as the backup. And Logan Woodside played so poorly in the preseason, they couldn't do it. And I was scouring the market for a backup quarterback that ran the same system the Titans ran to come in here behind Tannehill because I didn't want Malik Willis to play. And I didn't want Malik Willis to play for two reasons. Number one, I didn't think Malik Willis could help the team win, and I was right. And number two, because I didn't think Malik Willis was ready and Malik Willis was ever going to be any good, it would not have been a good idea to stick him out there. Instead, the great Mike Vrabel runs him out there on Sunday Night Football against the Kansas City Chiefs. Don't be getting on me about Malik. Adam from Portland says, no Ohio State linebackers, please. Give me Love, Bain, or Bailey, year one production with all three. Can I ask, Adam, what's wrong with Arvell Reese? Like, why is this an Ohio State-ist moment? No Ohio State linebackers. Well, I understand saying, like, I don't want Sonny Styles. I don't want an on-ball linebacker with the fourth pick. Fine. Okay. But why not Arvell Reese? You're just helmet scouting. You're telling me that I don't want Ohio State. Why? One person says, Field just had to be different from Kuiper. We will see board change again next week. I mean, mock drafts are always going to change. I think we have to remember, though, a lot of mock drafts have changed from the last mock draft because free agency has happened. So when you sign a bunch of players at a certain position, it's like, well, I don't think they'll be interested in that position because they've gone out of their way and they've said, hey, we've signed 5 receivers. I don't think they're going to draft a 6th. So that's why I think it's changing. And when it comes to the Titans, I don't think Field has to be different from Mel. I do think Field and Mel have to disagree on things. I think they naturally do it. But I don't think that the ESPN producers are saying, all right, well, we need different Titan picks to get the Titans all riled up. TDG says that Rutledge is the 4th best guard in this draft. He went to MTSU. No way I'm picking him at 35. The fan base will riot. Who cares what the fan base thinks? The fan base, I mean, the thing about the Titans fan base is the Titans fan base usually just sops up whatever the team tells them. So they'll take Rutledge, and then everybody will say, no, Jared, he's the next Benji Olsen. For whatever that's worth. Joe, in regards to Ty Simpson, says, and so a lot of people have brought this up, says that Ty Simpson and Dan Orlovsky are fellow CAA agents or CAA clients. I don't understand this take. And I saw that Orlovsky went on McAfee today and defended himself against this. Why would being CAA clients mean that Dan Orlovsky has to cover for Ty Simpson? I've never understood this. CAA employs a lot of people, or I should say they do employ a lot of people. CAA represents a lot of people. I don't understand why Dan Orlovsky, to be a CAA client, when Dan Orlovsky's probably making pretty good money at ESPN, would have to go cover for Ty Simpson. That's not how this works. The agent works for the client, not the other way around. Dan Orlovsky does not work for CAA. So I could see a CAA agent saying, well, I don't want to say anything bad about that guy because we represent him, even though I don't represent him, Jimmy Sexton does, or I don't represent him, Tommy Condon does, or I don't represent him, this guy does. But I don't see a CAA client saying I have to pump the tires of somebody because they're also a CAA client. That's not how this works. I mean, I have the same agent as Nate Burleson. So when I said the other day on the show that I don't think CBS should hire Nate Burleson, I wasn't expecting my agent to reach out and say, what are you doing? What are you? No, they work for me. That's how that works. But a lot of people have been bringing that up and saying that. I do want to hit on this Rueben Bain thing yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw this. So Rueben Bain sat down with Cameron Wolfe, who used to cover the Titans before TD did for ESPN. He sat down with Cameron Wolfe at the Miami Pro Day, and Rueben Bain dropped this nugget when asked about going to the Titans. Take a look.
Well, first, anywhere I go, it's a blessing, lifelong dream come true for me. But to play with Cam again and Jeffrey Simmons and JFM, with those caliber guys, it'd be nothing short of a blessing. Just an opportunity where I could come in and try to earn their trust and earn the coach's trust and show from day one I'm here to help. I'm here to help, and I'm here to get us to go to the Super Bowl, and that's all I want to do. I want to win wherever I go. I feel like I got the kind of mentality and the skill set to do it, and I would love to just earn those guys' trust and show it to them because Cam always tell me, every time you see me, say, we coming to get you, man. So hopefully his word hold up, and wherever I go, I'm going to just give my all to that program.
Okay, so he's like, every time I see Cam Ward, Cam says, hey, we're coming to get you. And I think that's probably tongue-in-cheek, and we can all laugh that off. But there's one little tiny part of me that's like, do you think the Titans would let Cam in on their draft plans and their free agent plans? Remember when Cam said that he hoped to have a say in the coaching search, and that became such a big deal? And afterwards, Mike Borgonzi was like, yeah, Cam says a lot of stuff. And he kind of brushed it off like, boys will be boys. But I almost wonder if it was like, hey, Cam, we want you to be a part of the process. And then Cam goes to the media and is like, I want to be part of the process. I don't know. I don't think the Titans have told Cam who they're going to draft, but I wouldn't put it past them. And I know a lot of people are going to say, no, Jared, you're just saying. When he says, Cam keeps saying they're coming to get me, I'm like, do you think the Titans share their draft plans with Cam Ward? It does feel like when it comes to the Titans, they go out of their way for whatever reason to keep Cam Ward and Jeffrey Simmons happy. Unequivocally. It's one thing when it's Josh Allen, the reigning league MVP. It's another thing when it's Cam Ward. And they just bend over backwards for Cam in ways I've never seen for a rookie quarterback. Unretiring a Hall of Famer's number. Bringing in his buddy. Joe points out they did end up with Xavier Restrepo, and they tried as hard as they could not to play him. And the Restrepo bros, they could not handle it. I mean, I almost wonder if they'll draft Rueben Bain as a tiebreaker because, well, Cam likes Rueben Bain. And I don't know, does Cam like Jeremiah Love? Does Cam like Sonny Styles? And before you tell me they're not that stupid, I've got 4 years of proof that this organization is, in fact, that stupid. So, I don't know. I mean, again, I think Rueben Bain's implying that Cam's kidding when he says we're coming to get you. And I don't think Cam Ward should have any idea about who they're going to draft. Some of you will think that it would be a good idea for Mike Borgonzi and the team to get an idea about Rueben Bain by talking to Cam Ward because they were teammates. And so, okay, tell me what you know about Rueben Bain. Is he a good guy? Is he this? Is he that? And it's kind of one of the oldest secrets in the book that you talk to guys about their teammates so that you can get a read on their teammates as opposed to necessarily them. Again, I don't think it's that covert, but I don't think I'd even ask Cam what he thinks about Rueben Bain because I don't want Cam to feel like he should be worried about who we're going to draft. Cam needs to be worried about Cam because Cam didn't play well last year. And unlike everybody else, with the firm exception of me, I'm on a one-man island here when it comes to Cam not playing well. Unlike everybody else, I don't accept the excuses, and he does need to get better. And yet it feels like the Titans want to make sure that you know that they believe all the excuses because they've got to keep Cam happy. Again, they brought Restrepo back. Why? He played in one game and he got hurt. And in the one game he played, he did have a nice catch, and all the Restrepo boys were like, ah! So I don't know. I'm just saying, when it comes to Cam, let's let Cam worry about Cam. I do want to touch on the hockey game tonight. Big freaking hockey game tonight, 7 o'clock. And this time next year, if there's a big freaking hockey game, it won't be on that crappy FanDuel Sports Network, but it is what it is. So the Preds play the San Jose Sharks. And according to MoneyPuck.com, the Nashville Predators, odds of making the playoffs if they win in regulation today are at 61.3. So almost 2 out of 3 if they win tonight against San Jose. If they lose in regulation, it drops to 37.3. This is what the old ticket package used to be, the march to the playoffs. It's nut-cutting time in the NHL. And so it's a big game tonight. The Preds are 5 points ahead of San Jose, but San Jose has 2 games in hand. And so all these games against the teams that you're competing with for that last wild card spot are massive, and this is one of them. And it's at home. And I did see on Money Puck that UC Saros is going to start tonight for the Predators. And so here's what I will ask. Can UC Saros play well tonight in a big game? I am putting it on the goalie tonight to win the game. The old Pawpaws have played well lately. The team has played well. The young guys have played well. They get rid of these defensemen. They call up Ryan Ufko, and he looks great out there. Tip of the cap to him. But can we put this on UC Saros? You're playing a team that right now is out of the playoffs, so it's not a very good team. You're playing a team that, while I do love Macklin Celebrini, and he's a superstar, it doesn't have elite talent. This is not the Edmonton Oilers with a healthy Leon Draisaitl. Can we put it on the $7 million goalie who the Predators were convinced was the bedrock of the organization, and they still are? I heard somebody last week say, and I'm talking about somebody big over there, said that the reason that they're still in the race is because of UC Saros. And I'm like, what? And then they had those 2 massive games last week. And I was on Instagram and I was scrolling around and I saw Robbie Stanley say on Instagram that Justus Onanen was going to get the start. And I was like, what? Season on the line and the $8 million goalie who's got a no trade clause for the next 8 years can't play in the big game? Who was it last Thursday? Seattle. And they were fighting for that last playoff spot. And then on Saturday, Vegas. And Onanen won both games. And Onanen didn't need overtime and didn't need to pull it out of his ass. And he's a replacement level goalie, and he won both games. I don't think goaltending is that important in the NHL come playoff time. And I don't expect the Predators to win a playoff series if they make it, though I do want them to make the playoffs. But for all of the boo-hoo Saros crew members out there, you remember yourselves, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Chris Mason, Ian Safar. Can Saros win one big game? Just one big game. And tonight is a big game. So I'm just going to say this. I don't care if San Jose outshoots the Predators 900-1 tonight. If they lose, I'm blaming the goalie. Because if the goalie is not that important, which was my argument the whole time. In fact, I remember saying, you can just go sign a Cam Talbot. There's always a goalie who's out there who you can sign, who's good enough, and you can spend the money on better skaters. And Chris Mason texted me, Cam Talbot, he sucks. Okay. You could have re-signed Kevin Lankinen. Hell, I'm not even convinced that Justus Onanen isn't as good as Saros, especially at the price he costs. So I'm putting this one on the goalie. If they lose tonight, it's the goalie's fault. And if they lose tonight, Willie, Derek, Chris Mason, Ian. Trying to think who else was on that side. I don't think anybody else was. If they lose tonight, suck it up and admit that Saros is not worth the weight the Predators have given him. Now, I'm hoping they win. But this is just one big game that I need UC Soros to win. So tonight, 7 o'clock, it's a biggie. Again, we're talking about a 30-point swing. If they win in regulation, 61%. If they lose, 37%. And let me just say this. I have decided if the Predators make the playoffs, you guys tell me if you would watch this. Go ahead and tell me in the comments. If the Predators make the playoffs, I will do a post-game show after every game. Now, it may not be like post-game live with football because I am going to go to the home games. That's part of the deal of being a season ticket holder, so I'd have to get my ass on back to the studio. But I will do a post-game show for the playoff games because, I do think it's exciting when it's the playoffs. I would pick the other team. It'll probably be Colorado. I'll pick them, but I'd like to see them play. But tonight is the Soros night. It's on Soros, and he can give up 7 goals. If they win 8-7, good enough. But he's got to pitch them to victory tonight, one way or another. That's it for us. Like and subscribe. See everybody live tomorrow at 2 o'clock.